So the recording has been started. My name is Enrico Ventulini. I am from Next Technology Tecnotessile. We are a research center and a cluster based in Italy, in Prato, which is a textile manufacturing area in Tuscany region. So today we have three main, let's say, spots. The first part is from 10 to 11, and it's a webinar about the circular transition of textile sector, where we're going to touch different topics. I'm going to introduce them in a minute. I will give then 10 to 5 minutes break before the second part, which is going to start at 11, where we are going to present the EuroBoosTEX and cross-build projects. So we're going to give an introduction and information about the open calls for SMEs. It is possible to apply for projects and how we are going to explain how you can submit the proposal. And then the third part is from 12 to 1, and it's about a cross-build project for the development of green and digital voucher calls and to encourage also SMEs to participate. So we have a very rich plate today. So we are going to start with the first part, which is going to be mainly technical, and then the second and the third part, it's going to be more operational in terms of how to submit your proposals under the calls that are open for these two projects, EuroBoosTEX and cross-build. I would like to start the first part, as I mentioned before, by introducing a small presentation that I'm going to do about the technologies, the green and digital technologies.
Yes, perfect.
Now I have changed the slide. Can you see the second slide?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So as I was mentioning before, Next Technology Tecnotessile is a private-public research center in Prato. It's a research center working for textile and automation and new materials. We are transferring and pushing technologies to our SMEs, and we also have a lab test, and we work a lot with European funded projects. We are also the managing body of Tuscany Fashion Cluster, which is a cluster of 120 companies. Regarding the circular economy technologies that I'm going to introduce very briefly now. First of all, we are working in upcycling, recycling, and reconditioning. You know, there is a lot of discussion going on at the moment in Europe regarding these upcoming legislations that will change the way we are going to design, produce, and dispose of the textiles that we produce. So we are very much interested in upcycling, meaning textile to textiles. So this garment is going to be disassembled and reconstructed to be put again on the market. Then recycling means from textile to new textiles, so new yarns production or also other uses, and reconditioning is the second-hand market. But I'm going to talk a little bit about this later during the presentation. Now I want to give you information about some specific technologies that we are developing at the moment in Next Technology Tecnotessile. The first one is the textile waste automatic sorting. You know, this is a very hot topic because the first step needed to allow the recycling of textile is the sorting. So sorting is referred to pre and post consumption. So the textile waste can come from the end market. So consumers, when they dispose their textiles, their clothing, they have many options, but it will be mandatory for them to dispose them according to some specific regulations that are going to be implemented in each member state of the European Union. But we also need to consider the pre-consumption waste. So all the waste that is coming from the production value chain. There are already on the market some sorting devices. The one that we are proposing is based on hyperspectral imaging technologies, and it's able to select the waste on the basis of color, composition, and the structure of the fabric. So this machine is able to divide and sort the textile waste according to these three different parameters. The prototype is already developed and is in place. It's here in our labs, and it's composed of a loading area, of course, and different stations where these hyperspectral sensors are placed, able to identify color, structure, and composition. And then there is an automatic sorting area where this textile is separated and collected in different boxes. On our website, you can find also a video about the working of this technology. Another technology that we are proposing, again for the preparation, because the preparation to the real recycling of textile is the main area where research is taking place at the moment, is about the elastan removal. So you know that nowadays most of the textiles that we are using on the market are blends made of natural or synthetic fibers mixed with a small percentage of elastan, which is very important to give comfort and durability. When the recycling of textile waste and end-of-life products is taking place, the elastan is a big issue to be solved. So it needs to be removed in order to allow the chemical or mechanical recycling technologies to work properly. We have developed the technology for the removal of elastan, which is based on a thermal process using an organic solvent. So there is not big environmental impact regarding to these technologies because the organic solvent can be collected and reused. So the collection of the used solvent is possible at the end of every production cycle. And then by regulating the process parameters, time, temperature, and solvent waste ratio, we can, let's say, remove the elastan from the textile blend. So we are going, with this technology, at the end of the process, we separate the elastan from the other fibers or the fabric structure. And this is already validated for nylon elastan blends, wool elastan blends, polyester elastan, and cotton elastan blends. And it's able to work on 5 kilos. So it's a small prototype that is going to be upscaled for a more industrial allow for the recycling of textiles, especially for the textile that has a very low value. It cannot be recycled fiber to fiber, because of course some very fine fibers like wool or cotton can be recycled to produce new yarns. So this is what is called fiber to fiber. But there are some very low quality fibers that are the residual after the best quality ones are used for the production of new fibers that cannot be recycled and should be disposed. Well, in this case, we use this waste, which is a very low quality, as I said, to produce mats like the ones that you see in the picture by air-laid deposition. This is what is typically called here in our area rossino, which means little red because it's a mix of colors and fibers that do not give a specific color or a specific blend that can be used again for production of new yarns. And we are producing some furniture components by overlapping and coupling the different mats with a mechanical thermal process. So pressing at high temperature by using some thermoplastic fibers, we are able to produce some applications. Here you have some examples in the furniture and building, so like mannequins and crutches and panels for thermal and acoustic insulation. And here you can see some let's say on the field realization that we have done for a shop here in Florence, where all the furniture and the components are created by using this residual waste of the textile sector and by creating some panels. Here in particular, you see on the floor, you have some panels created with a water-based resin with recycled buttons. So we didn't work only with the fibers, with the wool fibers, with the rossino, but also with other components that are coming from the end-of-life products after the that normally consumers dispose at the end, like buttons. Another important area is the nanotechnologies, where we can treat any kind of, almost any kind of material like leather, wood, textile, furs. Here you have some example of some fashion accessories that we have treated with the nanotechnologies, avoiding paint, galvanic, and of course, pollution. Now, another very important topic that we have at the moment in Europe is the design and building of these recycling hubs. The hubs for textile sector should be some physical and non-physical infrastructures where the recycling of post-consumption or pre-consumption textile waste should be increased. So the aim is to increase the recycling of textile. Here in this graph, you see the circular model. Maybe most of you already know about the circular model because so far we had the linear model where the linear model was based on production and dispose or incineration at the end of life. Now we're going to change this into a circular model where after the production of fabric or garment, the retail and the consumption, we are not going to dispose in the environment, but we are going to collect and reuse or recycle. So in the graph, you see the circle that is composed by the collection phase, the blue part, the sorting for reuse, the sorting for recycling, and the processing for recycling. And after the recycling, we have again the production of textiles. And this is what you can do. This is the pyramid that is normally used in order to provide the different options that can be followed for the for avoiding the dispose of textile waste or textile post-consumption garment into the environment. So first of all, of course, reduce the production. This is the first rule. Resell and reuse. So the third option is to repair in order to supply the second-hand market. Refurbish the textile is also something related to the second-hand market. Remanufacture, and at the end of the pyramid, we have the recycling. So recycling is the last option after trying to repair, refurbish, or recondition the used garment in order to put it again on the market. And here you have the different recycling technologies that can be used at the moment, after, of course, the refurbish and the remanufacture of end products for the second-hand market. So the blue part shows the technologies that can be used at the moment for recycling. So first of all, mechanical technologies that are still very important, especially for natural fibers. The thermomechanical technologies for polymers, and the chemical technologies that are also very, very important for the recycling of monomers and polymers. And in the end, the thermochemical technologies is a little bit residual to the other ones. So in these recycling hubs, as you know, maybe these will be created in all the textile manufacturing areas of Europe. So there is a big commitment by all the European countries for the setting up of these recycling hubs. We are going to create a physical infrastructure for increasing the recycling, but not only, because we need also to work on the technologies, on the applications, and also to study and do research on the textile waste streams. So what is coming as an input for the recycling up? So in order to increase the recycling, there is a need to map and study the different textile waste materials and the different channels from which these textile materials is collected, and then innovate and map the recycling technologies, as we were mentioning before, and define the application possibilities. So we need to work a lot also on some possible applications, because traditionally recycling means fiber to fiber, but as we see nowadays, it's not possible to have only fiber to fiber, but also downcycling, so meaning use of waste fibers into other applications, like, for instance, building, furniture, as we have seen some examples before, but also in other different sectors like agriculture or transports, aerospace, etc., or land transports. So the definition of application is also very important, and this is something R&D centers are working on, because we need to find new applications, and this is one of the main goals of the hubs. So it is, if you want, the hub is a competence center and an infrastructure working for the full, for the whole recycling value chains, from the collection to the final application. This is it for my presentation, and these are our contact details. Now I'm going to stop the sharing of the screen, and I'm going to introduce the next video, which is about the So we are going to touch other two topics that are very much related with the circular transition. The first one is Smart Textiles. So we're going to see a video about a presentation made by Lutz Wolter. Lutz Wolter is the Secretary General of ETP, the Textile European Technology Platform, that is going to tell us why smart textiles are not a dumb idea. So smart textiles are something that has some connections with the circular transition, but of course they work in parallel. So it is a very innovative market and possibility for textile companies that are running in parallel with the circular transition. And then we are going to touch with the other presentation made by Alessandro Pirattini, who is an Italian designer, and also a fashion, textile and fashion trainer for textile sector, about why the circular transition is so important, especially in the design phase. Because to allow the circular transition to become real, we need to have eco-design of the products. So the eco-design is very important, and this is where fashion designers play a very important role. So the eco-design should start from the fashion product design, and this is what the presentation of Alessandro is about. So I kindly invite now Matteo to share the first video, which is Lutz Walter presentation about smart textiles, why they are not a dumb idea. And then at the end, we can have a small Q&A session. So I invite you, of course, to type your questions in the chat, and then at the end of the two presentations, we are going to reply to the answers, to the questions, sorry. So Matteo, can you share the video? Just one moment. It's coming, eh? One moment. Sorry, we have a technical problem with Matteo laptop, so we don't hear nor seeing his screen, so he's trying to connect again in order to show the videos. Sorry about this technical problem, just a couple of minutes of patience, okay? A minute.
So can you see now my video?
Yes, well, now we can hear you, but yes, try to start the video.
Okay, so let now.
No,
Can you
we don't
confirm
hear. No, we don't hear, Matteo.
You don't hear the video?
No.
Let me check.
Da noi si arriva, dai. Devi fare clic sull'audio, devi includere l'audio. Sì,
Matteo, I'm not sure if it will help, but when you press the share button, in the right upper side, you have a thing saying share sound, computer sound. Maybe you should try that.
Yes, thank you, Elena. I will try to put it again. If you confirm it's working now.
I asked you, well, what do you want
It's
to
working.
speak about?
Okay,
I
thank
said,
you.
oh, speak about what you like. And I said, oh, well, that's very precise. But then I thought, well, actually, we should turn the question around. I shouldn't speak about what I like. I should speak about what you like. So I thought, well, what do people like? And I figured out there's an easy way now because a few months ago I started publishing more frequently and regularly on LinkedIn. And the nice feature is that when you publish on LinkedIn, you see what people like and do not like. And it turned out that this article with exactly that title, why smart textiles are not a dumb idea, in my opinion, was the most liked article I've published so far, which was seen by more than 6,000 people, apparently read by some close to 400 people. So it seems to be something that people like. So, and maybe some of you have seen it, some of you have read it, but probably many have not. So I thought, well, maybe today I just give you the gist of that article. It's a relatively long one, so if you want to go back to LinkedIn and read it in its entirety, you're welcome to do so. And in a way, it ties very well with the story that Sergio told us, because when it comes to technology adoption, I don't think smart textiles are a success story. Because I could ask the same question that he asked. How many of you today here is wearing a smart textile item, a smart wearable of textile material? Well, I don't see many hands, so I think we have a problem of adoption. So people could conclude, well, smart textiles probably have been a dumb idea. They don't work. People don't like them, people don't use them. So, but maybe it's not a question of if, but a question of when. And let's see if there is hope that there will be adoption, and if there will be, where it could happen. So, well, I would like to still tell you a few things about the organization that I represent, and Enrico already introduced me. So I'm heading an organization called the European Technology Platform for the future of textiles and clothing. That's the full term or the full name of the organization. In short, we call it Textile ETP, which is the largest community of textile research and innovation professionals in Europe. You see a few numbers there, and they're growing quite steadily. We're based in Brussels with a team of 5 people. I'm heading that team. I'm very happy to have that team and to be in this business for, well, as long as I have been, but I almost don't dare to admit anymore. It's a bit more than a few years, actually, and you know that. So, but it's still exciting every day, so it's really great. So what we do as an organization is we essentially do 3 things. We bring people together, and obviously not just any people, but we bring textile research and innovation professionals together from across Europe, and especially from across the research industry spectrum. So we organize networking events, activities, bring people together at also on our digital platforms, social media, and so on. Then another activity that we generally summarize as learning is that we are sharing information between our members, our subscribers, the people that work with us, and we have specific thematic masterclasses or communities. We currently have 4 of them, and we have 1 related to smart textiles specifically, which I will talk about a little later on. And then also a lot of people are obviously interested in the various funding opportunities for research and innovation that are available on the European level, and we try to do our best to connect our members with those funding opportunities. We don't provide funds ourselves, unfortunately, but we do know a little bit of how you get to these funds, and the best way of getting to these funds is to create good European consortia and to apply with these consortia for those funding programs. And the technology platform is a place where you can actually build these consortia, because you meet people that are also interested in this and you can team up with. So this is what we do in a nutshell. And it's a very accessible organization. So as an organization that is not yet a member of the ETP, you can become a member for as little as 200 euros per year. If you want to do a little bit more, then you can go out for a 500 euro subscription, but that's about it. So we're definitely not an elitist or luxurious organization. So, but let's get back to the actual story that I wanted to tell you, which is a story about smart textiles and its development and its adoption. So I will start with a very short story of smart textiles, which I would say is, you can summarize as 25 years of trying very hard. And we have seen a lot in those 25 years, and to put 25 years on one slide is obviously very, very challenging. So the highlights that I put in there are really very, very general and very summary in a way. So we can see that real smart textiles started to emerge in the IT boom of the late 90s. So we had a few examples of some companies, also some well-known companies that tried a few things out there. Also, I think most of the research activities in earnest started around that time. But then obviously the IT boom turned to bust in early 2000, and then the industry at least lost a little bit of an interest, but researchers continued to soldier on, and we've seen quite a lot of EU funding in this area. There were a lot of large-scale projects in the, let's say, in the early 2000s, which certainly have pushed the technology forward, but not necessarily the market adoption. Market adoption got another, I would say, glimmer of hope in the 2010s, when smart wearables started to become a thing. We heard about the smart watches and other kind of mostly consumer-oriented devices, where the IT world then started to launch back into these kind of devices. There was also, I think, more of a push from the IT and the digital sector. There were also quite a lot of startups going in that domain. But there was also continued progress on technology, especially then on the electronic side. We saw more flexible, more miniaturized, lower power consumption electronics. And now we're in the early 2020s. I think COVID, to some extent, also opened a few new domains that could be quite suitable for smart textiles, like telemedicine, the gaming, the home working, also the smart PPE, the personal protective equipment. So all these are market opportunities that I will mention in a moment. And we also see continued maturation of the various technologies, including manufacturing technologies, that we need to make smart textiles in a industrial and therefore in an efficient and therefore hopefully in a also affordable way. So, but then, as I said, so far the story of smart textiles in terms of adoption, in terms of market adoption, is not a success story. So let's look at why it isn't. And well, one of the things clearly is complexity. So on this chart here, which probably you cannot read from the back of the room, you see a picture, a schema that we put together as part of the SmartTex project a few years ago, which shows how the smart textiles manufacturing value chain looks like. And you immediately see the complexity. You see that there are two very different value chains, the red one, which is the microelectronics value chain, and the blue one, which is the textile value chain, somehow have to mix and intermingle in the right way, and then to give emergence to real smart textile products. And that does not only include the manufacturing of them, but also you see towards the end those white boxes here, where you see there are also a lot of services and data and business model related aspects that also have to all work out in order to make smart textiles a reality, not just as a technological prototype, but really as a successful product in the market. But there were a few other barriers along the way that also slowed down the process. I don't want to go necessarily through all of them, but I would summarize them or put them in 3 different buckets. Technology, which also includes design, application and end markets, and business models. So, and we've seen failure, we've seen misjudgments, we've seen overestimations or oversimplifications in many of these domains. And I think also that links very nicely back to some of the things that Sergio also presented to us in more general terms. So, but why do I believe there is hope for the future, having seen all these failures? Well, first of all, we have learned from a lot of these failures. So a failure or a mistake is always an opportunity to learn, if your mind is open, obviously. So I believe some of the aspects that I see that is hope is that on the technology front, we have de-bottlenecked. We have solved a lot of issues that were not solved, let's say, in the early 2000s. I think when we look at the materials, we look at conductive yarns, conductive inks, and these type of materials, they're much more mature, they're much more industrially available, they're much more affordable as well. When you look at the manufacturing technologies, especially the textile-related one, knitting, embroidery, printing, these are all technologies that are available at industrial scale that allow you to make smart textiles these days. They're much more efficient, they're much more really industrial rather than a kind of a manual prototyping way that most of smart textiles were made in the past. Also on the microelectronics front, we have better options. As I mentioned before, low cost, low power, more flexible, more miniaturized systems that are much more suitable for integration into textile materials. Also connectivity has always been a big bottleneck because a lot of these smart textiles require connectivity, and without a good coverage of connectivity, of wireless connectivity, a lot of these solutions would not really work. So with much broader coverage of wireless connectivity wherever we are these days, these solutions automatically become more valuable. And also on the data side, well, smart textiles generate typically data. Not all of them do, but many do. And it would be a stupid idea not to exploit or try to exploit that data, but you have to be able to do something with this data. So you have to manage the data. And the cloud-based services, the security management, also a legal framework of what to do with personal data and what not to do. They are all very important for somebody to bring something to the market and have real users really using them. Then I think also at the level of the markets, I think we understand much better where smart textiles probably have a realistic opportunity. When we look back in the early 2000s, it was really all focused on, or was mostly focused on consumer markets, big consumer markets, and that search for the killer application. So where is it where this thing will really go boom from one day to another and millions or billions of users will adopt them? Probably we'll never see that. We will see that much more likely in B2B markets, in niche markets, where the numbers may not be hundreds of millions, or not even millions, but it may be thousands or a few tens of thousands, but in a very consistent way, in a very profitable way. And here you see a few examples of those markets that I believe are very conducive for smart textile innovation, because these markets are mostly cost conscious but rationally value driven. If you can prove to a professional operator what you brings real value, and you can define that rationally, then you have a case. These markets often are also much more stable, much more reliable, much more predictable than consumer markets, which are very volatile. Typically, you know your customers well in those markets because your customers have been around for a long time, and you may have been serving these customers already for a long time with non-smart textile solutions. Your customers in the business-to-business world often think in total cost of ownership or total cost of service concepts, rather than just how much does it cost me to purchase this product. You can create much stronger lock-ins and stickiness because the users of those smart textile products are usually not the people who purchase those products and not the people who decide if they should use them or not. They may simply be required to use them. If you are a worker in a hazardous working environment, then people will require you to wear your protective suit, whether you want it or not. It is a requirement. If you are a patient and you're prescribed a certain medical device,
Sorry, but we can't hear the video.
Sorry, yes, we cannot hear the audio anymore. Let's try to fix the problem. Just 1 second.
Matteo, I think you have to open your micro.
Matteo, you are muted.
Often a problem, not only in smart textiles, in many technology developments, is that we have a tool, we have discovered a new tool, and we try to find.
Can you hear the video?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Find a use for that tool, but it's often the wrong way around. We have to look for a need, we have to look for a problem, and then to engineer a solution rather than coming with a wonderful technical solution in search of a need. So, and you can go through all of these questions. I will not do that also in the interest of time, but I really encourage you to read them. Also, my slides will be available to all of you. So, in conclusion, I believe there is a bright future for smart textiles if developers of those smart textiles make smart application and end market choices, if they go for proven technology and they go for user-friendly design that's very often overlooked, especially by technology developers. That's the secret behind the success of Apple, for instance. It is really user-friendly design. You need to have a solid business model. You have to know how you make money with this, and you how to make money not with a single sale, but on a permanent basis, on a real sustainable basis. And above all, as you remember, I showed you the complexity of the smart textile value chain. You need partners. You need the right partners to develop these things. No single company can develop complex smart textile solution on their own. And I want to finish here with just a few words, a little bit of advertisement, of course, for our SmartTex community. which we have been.
Okay, the video has been stopped because of time limit. Yes, now we are ready for the third presentation because the conclusion were not so interesting for the audience. Now we are going to broadcast Alessandro Piratini presentation about sustainability in the training of new fashion and textile designers. So once again, sorry for these technical problems. Okay. So
yes, I will share. Yes, the speech from Alessandro.
Thank you. The fashion designers. So please, Alessandro, try to be short because we are already late on the schedule. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning to all. Thank you to Enrico and Giulia to be here. I am a textile designer and also a teacher from 20 years. My point of view, I want to show you my point of view to arrange a new system of teaching following the needs of the students and also the needs of the brands. Then I show you one little diagram that I use normally like an introduction for the students, and then you can see that is important to understand these three sections in front of us: materials, process, and product. What about the new fashion designer studies? Then it's very important actually to inform them about the selection of the materials, because you know very well a sustainable collection must to be can be produced and developed only using specific kind of material, and the selection, the choice of material is the most important part of a collection, fashion collection. The focus, the most important focus is the longevity and durability of the product, the sustainable production methods, and also we need to pay attention to the reduction of the water and the energy consumption. Another important part of a sustainable collection is also to pay attention for the human health of the people at work and the fair labor practices. Then, there are several problems related to the old training system towards the designer, okay, to the sustainability. The first one is the lack of knowledge. The second one is the financial constraint, and then the cost of a sustainable collection, you know, is more than a normal one. The limited access to the sustainable resources, and also the new designer may not be aware of the available sustainable practices. Limited experience of the designer, limited understanding of consumer behavior, limited understanding of the industry, the actual position of the industry. Then, what we are doing now with the new teaching, there are now several ways to train new fashion designer in sustainability. Incorporate sustainability into the curriculum, and then it's the most important part of every course. Provide access to sustainable resources, and then provide mentorship and guidance, and then pairing new designer with experienced designers that who have a strong understanding of sustainability. Encourage hands-on experiences, and then host workshop, seminars, and guest lecture, inviting industry experts.
I think there is one more technical issue because I'm not hearing.
Critical thinking and creativity, and provide information and support on business aspects. Then, sustainable materials are necessary. The fashion industry is one of the most polluting industries in the world, and then it's necessary to transfer this concept immediately, as soon as possible. By using sustainable material, fashion designers and brands can help to reduce their environmental footprint and promote responsible and conscious consumption. Then, the selection of materials. There are several strategies that can be used to choose sustainable materials in fashion. Then, the first one, and the easiest one, could be the use of the natural fibers, and then cotton, linen, wool, hemp, for instance, and silk are often considered more sustainable than synthetic fibers for the biodegradability. The use of recycled material. For example, recycling plastic bottles or old fishing nets, when is necessary to use, for instance, an obligatory use of synthetic material into the outwear and in a specific application. Organic material without the use of pesticides or chemical fertilizer, healthier for those who produce them and less for the final consumer. Then, choosing materials with a low environmental impact, and then is another important element. Research and choose only brands and companies that follow sustainable practices in the production and use of these materials. Then, one important element in the selection of the materials is to use homogeneous materials. Because the use of homogeneous materials is necessary to manage the product's end of life. If we want to arrange at the end of the life of the garment an easy separation and recycling, is necessary to use more or less the same product, the same fibers together without mixing. Okay, this is a very important thing. Also, the value of the possibility in recycling could be more interesting. Traceability. Traceability is another important element that is necessary actually in a collection or in a supply chain. It's important to allow consumer to understand the origin of the material used, or helping brands to demonstrate the sustainability of their product. You know, greenwashing is one of the most important problems actually, and then the traceability could be the answer. Then, what about the new textile designer? For the new textile designer, the problem is more important. The problem is are more important to solve, because a textile designer is at the beginning of the supply chain, the production, and then the learning of sustainability probably must be accurate. Okay. Textile design education has been evolving to include more emphasis on sustainability and ethical practices. Many universities and colleges now offer textile design programs that incorporate sustainability and ethics into the curriculum. Okay, circular design, responsible sourcing, and the use of sustainable technologies like digital printing, laser cutting, and 3D knitting. Digitalization is very important. Some textile design programs are also partnering with industry leaders and organizations to provide students with real world experience. It's very important to participate in the real life in every important project, okay? Guest lecture, workshop, internship, and with sustainable textile companies, or they may participate in a sustainable textile design competition or context. Then there are also new textile designers who are experimenting with new ways of creating textiles, such as using natural dyes, for instance, or repurposing waste materials such as coffee ground, avocado stones, and pineapple leaves. Okay, and then, you know, the research is going on in the future. Then many new textile designers are also starting to collaborate with scientists, technologists, and engineers to develop new sustainable materials and production methods. Okay, and then there are many companies that produce fabrics that are ready to welcome a textile designer prepared for the new challenge of sustainability. We just need to prepare these students well.
Okay, so this is the end of the presentations for the first part. So I have one question in the chat, which is about the speed of the hyperspectral technology for the sorting of textile. Well, the machine that we have set up is able to work 3 meters per second or at a higher speed. So the speed can be higher. It has to be balanced with the feeding of the machine, with the feeding speed, with the feeding pace, but the cameras can work with up to 600 pictures, photograms per second. So it's very powerful technology. So if there are no more questions, I don't think there are more questions, right? Because I don't see them in the chat. I would like to thank you very much, all participants, for this first part.